Imagine waking up in a hospital bed, barely clinging to life after a horrific car crash. All you want is your parents, their comfort, their concern. But they never show up. Why? Because they chose your brother's award ceremony over their daughter's near-death experience. And that was just the beginning of the betrayal. Just 2 weeks ago, my world flipped, literally. I was driving home from work, minding my own business, when out of nowhere, another car slammed into me. The impact was so violent it sent my car flipping through the air. The paramedics later told me I was incredibly lucky to be alive. I needed emergency surgery, internal bleeding, 2 cracked ribs, a damaged leg. I spent a week in that hospital bed, healing physically, but absolutely shattered mentally. All I craved was my parents. I just assumed that as soon as they heard, they'd be there, rushing to my side. Maybe not for the whole week, but at least for a visit. A sign that they cared. But days turned into an agonizing blur of nothing. They didn't show. They didn't call. It took 4 days, 4 long days, before I even received a text from them. And yes, the hospital had contacted them, multiple times. They were my emergency contacts, after all. The nurses even mentioned how oddly unconcerned they seemed. That gutted me, truly. But I tried to make excuses, to rationalize it away. Maybe they were too busy, something important came up, right? My phone, miraculously, survived the crash, so I kept texting them every few hours, begging for a response. Nothing. Every day in that hospital was a nightmare, and the silence from my parents was a constant, searing pain. Fortunately, I wasn't entirely alone. My friends, bless their hearts, reached out to some family acquaintances who lived nearby, and one of them actually came to visit on the 6th day. By the way, if you're still with me on this wild ride, and trust me, it gets even crazier, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. You won't want to miss the shocking twists coming your way. And then came the bombshell. That family acquaintance, chatting casually, mentioned how wonderful it was that my brother was getting an award. I just stared at her, utterly confused. An award? What was she talking about? She filled me in, looking genuinely bewildered that I didn't know. That's when the truth hit me like another car crash. My parents weren't too busy. They weren't held up. They were at my brother's award ceremony. They knew I was lying in a hospital bed, recovering from major surgery, a literal hair's breadth from death. But instead of coming to me, they were celebrating him. Their focus wasn't on their injured daughter. It was entirely on the perception of his big night. They were so consumed with his event that they'd taken days to even acknowledge my existence. It was a brutal punch to the gut. Now, before anyone accuses me of jealousy, let me be clear. I get why they'd be proud of him. My brother is talented, he works hard, and he's incredibly successful at a big corporation. He's always been the golden child. That's the problem. From the moment we were born, he's been showered with praise, while I've largely gone unnoticed. He was celebrated for every single accomplishment, scholarships, fancy jobs, perfect grades. For me, it was never enough. My successes were overlooked, my mistakes magnified. I always felt like they'd already decided I was a failure, and nothing I did would ever change their minds. But this was different. I was recovering from surgery. A visit, a call, even just a text asking if I was okay. That was the bare minimum. All I wanted was for my parents to show an ounce of concern. I could have died that day, and they didn't even flinch. The anger and humiliation burned through me. I really tried to understand their actions, to explain it away. But I couldn't. So I did the only thing I could. I texted them. I told them how utterly disgusted I was, how they had prioritized my brother's award over my very life, how deeply hurt I was that they hadn't even bothered to check in. For the first time since the accident, I got a quick response. And I honestly wish they hadn't bothered. Their words only twisted the knife deeper. First, they tried to defend themselves, claiming they simply couldn't miss a once-in-a-lifetime achievement. I shot back, pointing out that if they'd come to see me sooner, they wouldn't have missed anything. Eventually, they gave up the pretense. They told me it was pointless to waste time coming to see me while my brother was out there making the family proud. Pointless. That word echoed in my mind. It meant I was an afterthought, a burden. It was precisely what I had always feared, what I had always known deep down. It shattered me. Just a week after my brother's big award, my parents unexpectedly appeared at the hospital. I was baffled. After our last conversation, I'd given up on them. But I knew my parents. They weren't there because they were worried. They walked in with forced smiles and a pathetic bouquet, trying to make small talk about how I was doing. It was so transparent, their minds were miles away. I cut them off, told them to just spit it out. I was still physically and emotionally broken, and their fake concern was more insulting than their absence. They had shown so little regard for my survival. I certainly didn't need their phony pity now. It didn't take much prodding. My mother burst into tears. My brother, their golden child, had been arrested for massive fraud at his company. He'd been falsifying accounts, funneling company funds into his own investments. An internal investigation, tipped off by a coworker, led to the police. He was facing serious charges: wire fraud, forgery, embezzlement. My parents, in their frantic efforts to protect him, had already burned through most of their savings on high-powered lawyers. They had come to me, lying in my hospital bed, still recovering from life-threatening injuries, to ask for my money. They wanted my savings, hard-earned as a project manager at an IT firm, to bail him out. They even asked if I knew anyone who could pull some strings. I wasn't their daughter in that moment. I was just a tool, a resource to clean up his mess. The audacity, the sheer nerve of it, was sickening. When I was afraid and alone after surgery, they didn't give a damn. But now their favorite child was in peril, and suddenly they needed me. It felt like a cruel joke, a slap across my bruised face. A tiny part of me, the part that always wanted to be a good daughter, felt a twinge of guilt. Maybe I should help for the sake of family. But the other side, the raw, furious side, roared back. Why should I save the very brother who had everything handed to him? My parents had always shielded him from consequences, and now they expected me to do the same. I looked them dead in the eye and told them no. Absolutely not. I said that even if I had the money, which I wasn't admitting to, I wouldn't feel obligated to help him. I reminded them of their priorities, of their unforgivable absence when I needed them most. They immediately tried to shame me, calling me self-centered, saying family should always be together. They insisted I'd regret not helping him, but I couldn't bring myself to care. My brother had always come before me. No matter how hard I tried, I was never enough. They wanted me to just forget all the times they'd ignored me, excluded me, made me feel insignificant. But now, for the first time in my life, I felt in control. And I wasn't going to let that power go. I lay there in my hospital bed, a strange mix of anger and a quiet sense of triumph. My parents haven't spoken to me since I said no. I know they're furious, but for the first time, I just don't care anymore. I'm done trying to earn their approval. Done wasting my time. I was discharged a few days after that confrontation, still on crutches, my ribs still aching with every breath. All I wanted was to go home, find some peace, escape the chaos. That hope was shattered the moment I arrived at my apartment. My parents were waiting for me, right outside my door. They must have called the hospital to get my exact discharge time, because I certainly hadn't told them. They wasted no time. Before I could even get my keys out, they started hammering me. They were incandescent with rage, screaming that I had gone too far by not helping my brother. I'd never seen them so angry. And what was truly shocking was that they seemed more upset with me for refusing than they were with my brother for committing fraud. They harped endlessly about family, calling me selfish and vindictive, claiming I was using this situation for revenge because I resented my brother. They didn't care that I was still recovering from a near-death experience just a week prior. They just saw me as an obstacle to their precious son's rescue. And then, the ultimate audacity, they told me they expected me to step up. This, they said, was my opportunity to show I wasn't a letdown, a chance to finally be part of the family. Morally, it was insane. They were essentially admitting I wasn't family, and the only way to earn that status was to bail out my criminal brother. Things took an even darker turn when I flat out refused again. My mother collapsed in tears at my door, wailing, "We've already lost one child, and now we're going to lose two. You're punishing us for loving him more." My dad, in contrast, just grew angrier, accusing me of being cold-hearted, selfish, and having no regard for the family. He swore I'd regret it when they were gone. I was exhausted, barely able to stand on my crutches, and being called a bad person for not cleaning up my brother's mess was almost too much. The fact that they openly admitted to loving him more, to intentionally treating him better, just poured salt in the wound. But I held my ground. I warned them I'd call the police if they didn't leave, and that I wouldn't pay a single dime for his bail or legal bills. Finally, they backed off, but not without one last string of insults. Just a few days later, my brother's case exploded into the headlines. The deception, it turned out, was far bigger than anyone initially thought. Police found evidence he'd been siphoning corporate funds for over a year, laundering some through fictitious business accounts. And as part of a wider investigation, they discovered he'd helped several colleagues hide their own embezzled money. Now he was facing charges of conspiracy and money laundering, on top of the fraud. If convicted, he was looking at serious time behind bars. The fallout for my parents was brutal. They were utterly freaked out. For years, they had boasted about my brother's accomplishments to anyone who would listen. Now his reputation was in tatters. Their attempts to control the narrative, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, weren't working. My dad even lost a major client when news spread about his son's involvement in such a huge fraud case. They were flailing, completely at a loss. And of course, they came stumbling back to me. This time, there was no pretense, no fake smiles, just raw desperation. They begged me just this once to help them through it, claiming they were under so much stress. They insisted that if I helped my brother, they'd have a chance to fix things and keep the family together. But I knew exactly what that meant. Keeping the family together meant preserving the illusion that their perfect son had done nothing wrong, and fixing things meant hiding his transgressions. I told them no again, and this time they went completely silent. No texts, no calls. They finally seemed to have given up on me. Honestly, they probably see me as a hopeless failure who abandoned the family in their time of need. But you know what? I no longer give a damn. It stings a little, knowing they just saw me as a fallback option, someone to control. But it also feels absolutely incredible to finally put myself first, to say no, to stop trying to appease them. I won't help my brother, and I won't let them use guilt to force me to fix a situation they created. They have to deal with the consequences of their choices now. Many of you asked for an update on my brother, and the truth is, things got even more complicated. He sent me an email, from jail, through a friend who still believes he's innocent. My first instinct was to delete it unread. I assumed it was another desperate attempt to guilt me into helping. But curiosity, that nagging little voice, got the better of me, and I opened it. He claimed he was being framed. He admitted to being part of the fraud, but swore he wasn't the mastermind. He insisted that the higher-ups used him as a scapegoat, that powerful executives were still walking free while he was left to take the fall. He pleaded for my help, not for our parents, but because he believed I was the only one who could save the family from disintegrating entirely. That line truly offended me, perhaps because he finally acknowledged how poisonous our parents had been, how they'd mistreated me and exploited him for their own egos. Seeing him admit that, after years of his complicity, was strange. But a part of me couldn't shake the feeling he was just saying whatever he thought would convince me to help, especially with that save the family line. The exact same thing my parents had been spewing. Still, a seed of doubt was planted. What if there was some truth to his claims? What if he really was being set up? I promised myself I was done, but I had to know for sure. So, I decided to investigate. I spoke to a lawyer friend, someone I trusted, who, while not involved in the case, gave me some guidance on where to look. What I uncovered was shocking. My brother's story wasn't entirely false. There was no doubt he was a fraudster. He was definitely involved. But it seemed he wasn't the one orchestrating everything. He had, in fact, been used as a pawn by several high-level executives who had been moving corporate funds for years. Because he oversaw specific accounts, he was left holding the bag when everything came crashing down. These superiors had cleverly distanced themselves from the grunt work, leaving my brother to bear the brunt. Learning all of this left me incredibly torn. On one hand, he was involved in a serious crime. Whether he was the mastermind or a pawn, he wasn't an innocent bystander. He knew exactly what he was doing, likely believing he'd never get caught. But on the other hand, I did feel a strange pang of pity. It's hard to ignore that he was exploited by those with more power and a lot more experience in hiding their tracks. Those executives clearly knew their roles and ensured my brother would face the worst consequences. And I couldn't help but wonder, if he hadn't been raised in a household that implicitly encouraged cutting corners as long as you appeared successful, would things have turned out differently? He probably thought he was untouchable, thanks to our parents' relentless protection and adoration. When I told my folks what I'd discovered, they were uncharacteristically silent. I believe deep down they understood the truth, even if they refused to acknowledge it. They just kept pushing their same narrative, calling me selfish and callous, rather than facing reality. It was like speaking to a brick wall. That was it. I made the decision to permanently cut off contact with them. I blocked them on every platform. I even told the front desk of my building to deny them entry if they ever showed up again unannounced. I'm tired of being their fallback option, their scapegoat, their emotional punching bag. And surprisingly, I'm not depressed about it. I had always assumed leaving my family would feel like a monumental loss, but instead, it feels incredibly liberating. I can finally live my life without constantly comparing myself to my brother or begging for scraps of affection from people who would never truly offer it. But here's the real twist. When my parents tried to rally the extended family against me, spreading rumors about my selfishness and calling me a monster for not helping my brother, cleverly omitting their own abandonment, something amazing happened. Instead of siding with them, several distant relatives started contacting me. It turns out my parents' constant favoritism for my brother and their habit of covering up his mistakes had alienated a lot of people over the years. I started hearing stories from relatives I hadn't spoken to in ages, and each one was more shocking than the last. An aunt told me my brother once borrowed a huge sum from her husband for a failed business venture, and when she tried to get her money back, my parents cut ties and branded her avaricious. A cousin recounted how my brother blamed a parking lot attendant for my uncle's car crash at a family gathering years ago, and my parents covered it up, accusing my uncle of trying to damage my brother's reputation when he tried to speak up. There were countless examples of my parents either covering for my brother or silencing anyone who dared to question him. It was both startling and incredibly reassuring to hear all this. I wasn't insane. My parents truly did have a long history of ignoring others and hiding behind my brother. For so long, I believed I was somehow to blame for their treatment, that I wasn't good enough. But I see now it was never about me. It was about their relentless need to protect my brother at all costs, even if it meant alienating their own family. Many of you asked why they were so desperate for my help. It's because, despite their lack of encouragement, I've built a strong, stable life for myself. I've managed my finances wisely, made prudent investments, and cultivated excellent relationships as a project manager at a reputable IT company. They knew I had the money, which is why they were so frantic. What they failed to grasp was that just because I could help didn't mean I would, especially not for people who had treated me like an afterthought my entire life. As for my brother's case, my parents eventually scraped together enough money from loans and favors to bail him out. But the investigation wasn't over. A few weeks ago, he decided to cooperate with the authorities, providing information about the higher-ups involved in the scam. This helped the prosecution, and he received a lighter sentence: 1 year in jail and community service instead of years in prison. Honestly, it doesn't make me feel any better. His cooperation is fine, but it doesn't erase the fact that he chose to participate in the first place. And I don't believe this experience will fundamentally change him. I doubt he'll stop relying on my parents to clean up his messes anytime soon. But for me, I'm finally free. I found a new kind of family in those relatives who reached out, people who truly see and support me. An aunt even apologized for not recognizing the situation sooner, admitting she'd stayed silent to avoid conflict. Now, she's one of my biggest supporters. It's weird, after years of being excluded by my immediate family, I've unexpectedly found a sense of belonging. I'm excited to get to know these relatives better, to attend family events where my parents won't be, where I'll finally feel valued. For the first time, I feel genuinely hopeful about the future, even though I have no idea what it holds. I know I made the right decision, even if my parents will never believe it. I've been treated like I didn't matter for far too long, and I'm just done. My brother's predicament is awful, yes, but it is not my responsibility to fix. This journey hasn't been easy, but knowing I'm not alone, that I wasn't crazy for standing up for myself, has been an incredible comfort. It feels amazing to finally be in charge of my own life. So what about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family, even when it felt like the hardest thing in the world? Or have you found your true family in unexpected places? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you think.